Welcome, everybody, to the eighth edition of Stories of Service, where I feature ordinary people who do extraordinary work. I'm your host, Teresa Carpenter, and welcome. Today, we have an amazing guest, as we always have amazing guests. I always say that. Today, we have Jose Valazquez. And Jose Velazquez is a dear friend of mine. I've just gotten to know him in the last few months due to LinkedIn, and that is because of his expertise in digital networking. I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory about him, but say hi, Jose.
Hi, everyone.
And then once I give the backstory, I'll go ahead and get into it and ask a few questions. And then if you guys out there in the audience want to ask some questions, feel free to chime in the chat and we'll take a look. But Jose Velasquez is an affiliate certified digital networking coach. He's accredited through the Digital Networking Professional Program. He's one of the first two people to earn the CDNC level certification. He successfully coaches service members, veterans, and military spouses on the skills and knowledge needed to leverage their digital network in support of personal, career, business, and corporate goals. He draws on a lifetime of broadcast experience to teach the course from a professional communicator perspective. Now, prior to his role as an affiliate coach, Jose serves as the senior digital manager for digital content and branding for higher military. In that role, he used proven public relations, marketing, and digital media techniques to successfully promote the brand and that of its parent corporation, Tenova. He's a 30-year Army veteran. He retired after serving in a pinnacle position as the Sergeant Major of the Office of the Chief of Army Public Affairs. He's advised the Chief of Army Public Affairs, the Chief of Staff of the Army, the Secretary of the Army, and senior Department of Defense officials on major military initiatives and how to communicate them to various audiences, to include Congress, public and private industry, international and national media, and academia. His notable assignments also include serving as the public affairs officer to the Sergeant Major of the Army, as well as serving as the Army's top digital content and broadcasting expert. He's also worked at My Command, which is Joint Planning Support Element, which used to be called Joint Public Affairs Support Element, and we'll be talking about that as well. He's won the National Silver Telly Award for Cable News Excellence and was selected as the Army Senior Broadcast Journalist of the Year. He's won numerous Thomas Jefferson, and Keith L. Ware Awards for Broadcast Excellence. And most recently, he was awarded the League of the United Latin American Citizens National Excellence in Service Award for his volunteer work in underprivileged communities, helping at-risk youth citizenship, academics, and life skills to help them break the bonds of poverty. I really couldn't have asked for a better person to come on and really espouse what this podcast is all about. So, Jose, welcome to the show.
Oh, Teresa, it is such a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. You've really become just a valuable resource and mentor, not only to me, but to so many people, especially on LinkedIn. It's been just such a journey to watch some of the things that you've been doing. And I'm just so blessed that, we've met and our paths have crossed. So thank you. So what I want to get into first is sort of going to get a backstory, because you are so good at digital networking, and I want to know where all that came from. So sort of how your career in the military influenced that, and sort of how you got your start in networking and digital communications online.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Teresa. So as you noted, I was a legacy broadcaster from the days of the Armed Forces, then American Forces Network overseas. I wasn't there for all of it. So I wasn't there from day one back in the 1930s and 40s, of course. But I really loved what I did. It was so special to me. And so as I saw it transitioning from its legacy mechanical formats, its tapes, and its mechanical and magnetic forms to its digital forms, I was really enchanted by the idea of how far connecting online could go, how far storytelling could go. And then the next level, if you can tell a story, then you can connect with somebody, you can connect with another person, you can get to know them. And a lot of times we can find that our differences aren't so different and that we all want the same things in life. And so it was really a special experience for me to transition in the commercial world and then in the private world as well. Of course, I was, along for the ride with the rest of us as we transitioned online to all of the social media that existed. What I learned over time was, there were some things that were funky, about all the different platforms, and I really couldn't figure out what it was that that I didn't like, and what it was is, there was always, that discord that unfortunately occurs when you have family around, right? Your uncle, crazy Uncle Bob with the tinfoil hat at the Thanksgiving table, right? But on LinkedIn, you don't have to worry about that because although I love my uncle, on LinkedIn, I get a chance to engage with people without the craziness, and that's such a welcome place. I get to work with people, I get to interact with them, do what I can to support them. And what I've learned is that there are so many people who want to support me in return. And so for me, LinkedIn just became a wonderful platform for me to use to the advantage of anyone who I support, and of course to my advantage as well, because I've gained so much from it, if not more than anyone else that I've helped.
Absolutely. And I think that it can be a hard thing for people to embrace social media in general, especially people that are our age who really didn't grow up on social media. I can remember when an XO of a destroyer started a blog when I was at Pacific Fleet. And oh my God, people were like, just no, we can't do this, because social media was just such a hard thing for people to embrace. And I still feel like there are people who are very adverse because there are some things that happen on social media with disinformation and misinformation and cyberbullying, and there are some bad things. But I would argue that those same bad things happen face to face. Like you
Yeah.
said, the crazy uncle at the table is going to be no different than the crazy troll sometimes who just keeps picking at you with a silly comment or whatever. And we have to learn how to use these tools so that we can connect with one another and we can grow our network and make meaningful connections with other people that we would never meet otherwise, especially globally. So
Absolutely.
oh, go ahead.
No, absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. And I mean, I think of the friendships that I've been able to foster from all over the planet, how many friendships I've been able to maintain. In the old days when you said goodbye and you PCS from one location to another, you had to say goodbye to a whole host of friends, or at least snail mail, right?
Right.
But surely you weren't going to engage with them regularly like you can today. Today, you can make a friend on the other side of the earth and maintain a meaningful friendship and connection with them, today and into the future. And I mean, my goodness, if that's not the whole purpose of life, I don't know what is.
I totally agree with you. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I really do. I resonate so much with that. And I'm sure people who are watching will as well. And I want to ask you, as a public affairs officer, and I know there are some who think us being in PR, the story is not about us. It's about our sailors, or it's about the people that we're portraying. Do you think those things have to be mutually exclusive? And do you think there is a way for us as PAOs, with the great privilege and the trust that we're given, to be able to share our stories, but then also be able to share the stories of others at the same time?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think that they can exist together. I think that it's so important for us to recognize, and I'll tell you, I think as public affairs people, we tend to put others in front of us, and we focus a lot of our energies on making our commanders, our senior enlisted leaders, our senior civilians successful. We want their message to resonate, and that's absolutely fair. But doesn't their message resonate through us? Doesn't it resonate through us just like the next person? And so, I mean, influencers have figured this stuff out. Digital influencers, especially the ones who wear the uniform, there's a lot of people that knock on them. But the truth is, there are so many of those service members that have a platform and use it wisely and use it successfully. And in many respects, our services owe a debt of gratitude to them, because through them, our services are seen in a positive light in ways that money cannot buy. And that's through trust and authenticity. So for me, I believe that there is place for both of those things. I think that we do, as public affairs professionals, need to focus on caring for the message of our service, of the Department of Defense, of our leaders, and making sure that we can nest that across the board. But at the same time, as individuals, as service people, as people with a voice, I think it's important that we share our experience, because I just honestly believe that there's a whole lot more to it than, just kind of telling someone else's story. Their story, the Army story, the Navy story, the whatever service you're in story resonates through you. And, it's through that filter that the people who trust you, whose name recognition matters, that's how they learn. That's how they get to trust the service. And so, for me, I have absolutely no issues with either public affairs people or other influencers using their service as part of their identity. It's okay for me.
Right. And I think that, I've had to evolve on how I see this issue as well. And had a lot of talks with some of the influencers that I'm friends with. Kelly Hall, for one. She's a HR officer and she's doing amazing things. Another one is Nikki MGTV. He's kind of the TMZ of the
He's
military,
awesome.
but he's great. And he's so fair. He'll
Yeah.
show both sides of a story. And yes, it's juicy and controversial, but he does it with a little bit of a sense of humor, and he always does it for pride in the uniform. You get nothing but his pride and his honor in serving, and it shines through everything he does. Another great example, who is a public affairs officer, a lieutenant colonel, and that's Olivia Nunn. And I
Oh,
saw,
yeah.
yeah, you did an interview with her earlier this year, and she's a podcaster as well, and she's really been able to broadcast Soldier for Life in this wonderful way, while also being a storyteller and a public affairs officer and bringing forth the stories of the soldiers as well. And it's really inspiring to see that, and to see that people can do that. Amanda Huffman is another one. I think you've also interviewed Amanda. She does the Women in the Military podcast. And so I think there is room to do that. And they're really kind of the people that I look to when I wanted to learn more about, and you as well, when I wanted to learn more about digital networking. I had already was very active on my Facebook, but that was mostly with friends and family. When you decide that you want to do Instagram or YouTube or LinkedIn, you know that you're going to be reaching this bigger audience. And so I guess my question for you is, how do you navigate controversial issues? Because sometimes you want to talk about things that push a discussion along, or advocate for positive change, but how do you do that without letting things get ugly?
Yeah. I think that there has to be a point at which, you recognize that you do serve, your service first. And we're all about service to our nation and service to our military service first. And so I don't think that there's much of an issue there. I think if we happen to discuss a topic that we feel strongly about, as long as we do it with dignity, as long as we do it in a fair fashion, that we make every attempt to look at whatever amount of sides there might be to that story, and we do it in a form that looks to educate and elevate, I think that then we're doing it in the right way. And I think that our audiences will likely follow along. Sure, there will be some people that are going to have a negative or positive opinion on your comment section, but that happens to everybody. That happen every admiral, every admiral and general, every admiral, general, sergeant major, master chief, petty officer. I mean, if they're a senior leader, with a voice, they're out there commenting, and they have to be willing to accept that people are going to comment on their posts as well. I think where the benefit is is in the engagement. So,
Hmm.
too many times I see, sometimes when it comes to, our senior leadership, if they will post, a post about a particular topic, it's kind of fire and forget.
It
They'll
is.
throw it out there and then that's it. The truth is there has to be that engagement, and you have to be willing to learn from the people in your comments section, no matter what rank you are.
That's a
We
great point.
Yeah, we surely don't know everything. Rank doesn't, there's no perfect rank, and there's no one that, at least no one I've ever met, who knows everything. Um,
Right.
and and so for me, I will work on a topic. I will share my thoughts on the topic. I'll try to be fair, and I'll accept that I may have a bias or an opinion about it, and I'll just acknowledge that up front. But then, in addition to that, I will go back and try and learn from what I'm hearing in the comments section. And if it requires some self-reflection on my part or some action on my part, then maybe I need to take that self reflection and action. And I've had to do that in my own life, because I surely have a lot to learn. And so when those occasions have happened where I've made a comment and someone has educated me, I've taken it to heart and I've made an attempt to be better.
Right. Right. I think I got a little bit of experience doing this when I was on the animal advocacy front, because animals is such an emotional issue. And so there were a lot there were people that one particular nonprofit made us as social media warriors, where we would go and comment on certain issues. And I learned a lot watching a few of my mentors do these back and forths with people. And it really does just amount to just not getting low, not getting personal, and just trying your best to have a respectful dialogue with people, because I do believe that it's possible to do that, and I think that a lot of good can come from that. How would you recommend for? I see what you're saying with a lot of the fire and forget and the engagement, and even if, let's say, a 4-star or a CEO, I want to make this inclusive of any company or nonprofit. If they've become so big that they can't moderate the comments. For an example, Joe Rogan, he's got a million comments. A lot of these huge YouTubers, even like MGTV, Nikki's almost at like 100,000 subscribers.
I
What
know. That's awesome.
I know, I'm very happy for him. But what do those kind of guys do with engagement? Now, how do they scale that when they get to be a point where they can't keep up with all the comments and all the engagement?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I guess there's two ways I can think of that you can do that. Number one, you can hire a bunch of public relations people to sift through your stuff, right?
Sure,
And
sure.
so that's where we come in, right? And
Right.
then we can try and find the things that kind of are systemic, or comments or topics that we can gulf into a larger group. But we also want to be honest, as public relations people across the board, so that we're not just giving our boss the good news or the messages he or she wants to hear, but what is a real sampling of what's happening in their comment section. But then again, the other way is to just accept that you're not going to be able to respond to everything, and that you're not going to be able to see everything, and that you have an opinion.
Mhm.
Chances are it's not going to change because something you read in your comment section.
Right.
Yeah, I've yet to meet that person, right? And so, so realistically, you have an opinion going in, and you believe in that opinion. Absolutely, you go back and get educated on it. Hopefully, you learn from what you're picking up in your comment section. But what you reply to is what you believe you should be replying to, and sometimes you win sometimes you don't. I just recognize, there's absolutely no way that Nikki or Admiral so and so, who's got a million followers, or
Mhm. He's not
you
going to
know
personally respond back to
right.
every single person who
No,
puts the comment,
no.
and people can't really expect that. So I see that as, yeah, once you've hit a certain threshold, But you can acknowledge that you appreciate people's comments, you appreciate the feedback. I think there's ways to do it in your videos and in your messaging, that
Yep.
you're aware of the audience that you have, and you take great care to engage as much as you can, and in
Yeah.
a way that is the best fit for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back into your comment section on a regular basis and getting a good dose of those comments is incredibly important. If you're gonna get on social media, no matter how important you are, you have to recognize that there's a part of social media. The part that matters is the social part. And so if you're not willing to take that advice, take that, those comments, take that, those people's opinions, then maybe social media is not right for you.
Correct. I agree. And I think that one of the things that I try to do is I try to surround myself with people who are of different views and who don't necessarily agree with me on things, because sometimes I don't have a fully formed opinion on an issue. And so a lot of times social media is an amazing way for me to hear from people who have different varying perspectives. Like even this thing with my arm, oh my gosh, I have literally 30 people who've told me it could, some sort of solution will work. I'm not really sure. I go in tomorrow to see a specialist to find out what really will hopefully fix it. But it's amazing how many different opinions there are out there, and how many things can be right at the same time too. That's where you have to just hold space for people's views, and for the things that people have to say. And speaking of comments, we did get a quick hello. Athenas Valerio says hello from Puerto Rico.
Hello, hola. ¿Cómo está?
Yes, yes. But yeah, I think that that's such an important part of social media. And then getting into the transitioning space, because I know you do a lot of networking with those who transition. And what would you say are some of the biggest mistakes, people who are transitioning? And we could even say transitioning from a certain job or a new season in their life. It's not just transitioning from the military. But what would you say are some of the biggest mistakes that you see when you're counseling people on the transition process?
Wow. Well, you might need another hour. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So some of the things that I regularly get are people don't fully appreciate, specific to the military, but probably from industry to industry is likely the same comment. People don't fully appreciate how different and difficult it can be to go through that transition process. And so many times they just don't give themselves enough time. You really need the time to go through that transition, because there's a lot more to it than just paperwork and filling this thing out and signing those forms and getting your orders and whatever. There is quite a lot of soul searching that goes into it. People really need some time to open up to new ideas, to develop that digital network, that personal network, that community network, to grow into a new space. For many of us who've served in uniform, the last time that we had an independent thought, and I don't really mean independent thought. We all have independent thoughts every day, but the ones that that are kind of the big picture thoughts tend to be, we were 18 or 19 years old, or maybe 22 years old right out of college. That was the last time that we were still freewheeling and dealing.
Yes,
And
yes.
and the longer we're in, I think that in addition to that, the longer we're in, the harder it is for us in some respects, because we do become institutionalized, and we do become reliant in many respects. I hate to use the term like a prisoner, because we're surely not. We have choices. But if you think about someone who's been in, an institution for a very long time, decisions are made for them,
Mhm.
and so for many of us, we're somewhat used to that. And then
Right.
all of a sudden somebody says, "What do you want to do?" And you really don't know.
No.
Some people are lucky, they just happen to know. And but many people have no idea. And the first thing they can think of is, well, I don't know, I did this in the military.
Oh, let me go get a government job doing the
Yeah,
exact
I get a government job doing what I did in the military. And you're like, did you like what you did in the military? Oh, I hated it. Let me tell you 1,000 times. Well, if you hated it, why do you want to do it? Now that you have a
Yeah,
choice. So absolutely, yeah. You really need some time, and again, the process can take a while. So I encourage anyone who's getting ready to participate in a military transition or changing from industry to industry to give yourself that extra time because you're going to need it.
absolutely. And there's a friend of mine, I think her name is Grace Cello, but she's got a brand called Brand Before Resume. And that always kind of stuck with me because I think that branding is not a dirty word. When I think of branding, it is what you present to the world, who you are, what you stand for, what you value. And I think that you need to know that within yourself before you embark on that next chapter in your life when you go to transition careers. Because I think what you wanted when you were 19 or 20 was, I just need to earn some money, I need a livelihood. And then as you get older, especially if you have the great luxury to be financially stable, as a lot of retirees are, or semi financially stable, you kind of transition, at least I did, I'm in 44, to where I really want something that's going to fulfill me and nourish my soul. And I think that sometimes if you go right back into what you just did in the military, you may not have given yourself, like you said, that time to really look within yourself and say, well, what is going to nourish me and make me just excited to come to work every day and excited about what it is I'm doing. And is that how you got on the path from when you got out of the military to, I want to really get deep into digital networking? Was that sort of what was driving you in that direction?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of people don't know that a significant amount, well over 50 to 60% of those of us transitioning out of the military will switch jobs within that first year. And sometimes we switch jobs just because we have this incredible freedom to just quit, and we don't
Mm-hmm.
know how to act, so we just quit. We're like, oh, I just want to quit. But secondly, I think if we're only chasing money for the sake of chasing money, what we can find, and hey, if you get lucky and you get the money and you get the fulfillment, good on you. We all want to be you. But if you only get money for the sake of money and the job eats away at your soul, most
Mm-hmm.
people just don't want to do that. And so there is a huge percentage of people that switch over, within the first 24 months after leaving service. They're just not fulfilled, what you just said. And so, we're used to believing in something bigger than us. We're used to having a meaningful mission, whatever mission that is. And when we leave service, that doesn't change about us immediately. There's a reason they call transition, and that is because it is a process. It doesn't just happen one day. And so, I think that meaningful engagement, meaningful direction, a job that means something to you, that you wake up in the morning genuinely wanting to go to, that you feel like you're making a difference, that is worth its weight in gold. And I think too many people, especially within our major cities. Now, fair enough, those major cities are very expensive. So if you live in the DC area, I got you. You got it. You got to
Right,
pay the
right.
bills. Especially these days with the economy the way it is, and the
Mhm.
housing market, I should say, the way it is. But understandably, people may very well find that they're just not happy with the kind of job that either does nothing for them internally, or they're just doing it for the money and they hate it. And
Yeah.
so I absolutely encourage people to find something that fulfills them. And sometimes the best question that you can ask yourself when you can't figure out what you want to do is, what don't you want to do? We can all figure that one out. We,
Mhm.
we all have 10 things we absolutely don't want to do. So let's, you start kind of writing those things down. And at least that starts dwindling down the number of things that, you're not going to make a mistake choosing as you transition. So definitely worthwhile, for your consideration and for anyone else as they're getting ready to transition.
So, how do you feel about the future of work in terms of where people are going to work, how they're going to want to work, and where do you think we're going in terms of that based on what we saw during COVID with so many people teleworking? Do you think that we're going to shift in the way that the worker model is structured?
I would hope we would. Um, I would hope. Uh, I think I think tech leads the way when it comes to this. I think tech is smart enough to know that they want the best people, not the best people in a particular area. Now, to be fair, certain jobs require a physical presence. You can't ER from a distance, right?
Correct.
So that's fair enough. Although you can telemedicine from a distance, but
Some of it.
yeah,
Some of
some
it.
of it. Absolutely. So that's absolutely fair. But there is a whole lot of things that we can do from a distance. And if we really, really want the best qualified people, the people that genuinely are going to make our organization better, then a hybrid model is almost assuredly the model. And I really hope that our government and our large institutions consider it as they move forward and don't miss out on the lessons learned that we've had over this past year. Unfortunately, it's easy for us to just fall back into old
Mhm.
habits and just,
Cultural thing.
yeah, it's a cultural thing. And we just kind of go back to our cubicle because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to leave your house every morning and, go to your cubicle and turn on your computer and
Hmm.
work on your little project. And, half your day's gone in meetings. And I'll tell you, I don't know that I have ever been more productive than in this last year. And I think a lot of people would tell you the same thing, that they've not only been busy, but that they've done great work this last year, the kind of work that they're proud of. And their organizations have likely benefited. I mean, we've had this horrible circumstance, and yet how many companies have grown and exploded over this last year? It's crazy. How many more billionaires have been created? How many more millionaires have been created? How many, millions and millions of people have been lifted above the poverty line? This has been an amazing opportunity for us to learn about ourselves and kind of force ourselves into circumstance forced us 10 years into the future,
Hmm.
and we got a glimpse of what that could be.
We did.
And now we just have to force ourselves, not
Yeah.
you and I personally, but we as a
No.
society have to force ourselves not to let ourselves, let apathy fall back in, and for us to just go back to doing things the way we've always done them, because we've always done that way.
Right. And we definitely are seeing, especially, I'm still serving. We're seeing a lot of offices going back to being in the office full time. And I'm pretty outspoken about being a hybrid or a telework advocate myself. And I think that it will happen because it's going to be forced upon us. Because at some point, DoD is not going to get the best and the brightest workers, because the best and the brightest workers are going to be lured by the other companies who do offer a telework model. Now, I'm not saying sailors on ships that need repairs are always suddenly going to be telework. But what I'm saying is, when you give people the freedom and the autonomy to choose when they need to be present and when they don't need to be present, what you're doing is you're giving them autonomy and you're giving them control of their time. So if they want to wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning and knock out their work and be done with their work by 12 p.m., well, so be it. And then they have the rest of their afternoon to hit up the beach.
Absolutely.
If they can, if they don't have meetings or they don't need to be somewhere physically. So I think that it's going to happen, Jose. It's just a matter of when. It may not be something I'll see in my military career. I hope it's something I'll see, but it may not. But I think that you're right. COVID accelerated what was possible, and even that Pentagon IG report that said that 90% of employees who felt they were more productive or felt that productivity did not decrease while they were on telework was very telling, and I think a great sign of things to come.
Yeah.
So I think the other thing I just wanted to ask you, just to kind of backtrack into your career, I know you used to work at Gypsy, and so I heard some stories about it.
Oh no.
Joint planning for element, not well about you serving in Haiti.
Yeah, yeah.
I know that was one of the big missions that you did while you were there. Can you tell me a little bit, not just maybe about joint planning support element, but other places that you've served, or some of maybe your fondest memories of serving and some of the cool things you got to do, and how that's impacted you today?
Oh my goodness. So wow, the joint planning supporting element, it was an incredible assignment around probably the most premier group of communications professionals I ever served with. And it was absolutely amazing. The places we went, the things we did, the impact that I feel like we had was palpable. We traveled the world, and we really, were in places that were, really beautiful, really devastated, sometimes beautiful and devastated at the same
Yeah.
time. Unfortunately, Haiti was one of those. It was, incredibly painful to see the anguish of the Haitian people. Unfortunately, dramatically, we've seen, this most
In
recent
recent, yes,
war in
news.
recent days. But it's unfortunate, that we had to go there for that reason, after that horrible earthquake in 2011. But to see the resiliency of the Haitian people, and to see the nations of the world coming together to work toward, the benefit of these people who were, in a just a terrible situation, was really, really impressive. And it just filled my heart every single day. I I would work myself to the bone. I actually had to have coworkers, kind of, force me to go, okay, okay, all right, that's enough, Jose. Go to your tent, take a break, because I really didn't want to stop working, because number one, the work, just there was more work than there were hours in the day. Secondly, just to watch that resiliency of the Haitian people and the resolve of the world, was incredible. And third, we were needed. And so I never felt more needed than when I worked in that organization. And so I just have such warm memories. Most of them are, strangely, being up at 3 a.m. in the middle of a field somewhere, trying to set up a satellite dish system, because somebody decided they really wanted to do a live interview with Good Morning America at 7 o'clock in the morning. But those were awesome. And I have to say, regardless of what, and I have a million memories from across my 30 years, in service, but they all involve people, and in particular, the people I served with. I don't miss being in the Army per se. I don't miss getting up at, dark 30, to go to PT. I work out on my own now,
Right.
at more normal hours.
Yeah.
Having said that, my goodness, I do miss, and I will forever cherish, the friendships I made, the shared experiences I had in some of the most difficult situations. But somehow it was those difficult situations that brought us together, and I will forever remember the people that were with me, in those circumstances. So, I am, warmed by those experiences, and because of the digital network, I get to maintain many of those friendships for years and years to come.
Yeah, it's all about the people. That's the thing that I'm going to take away as well, when this journey's over for me, is the experiences and the different cultures and the traveling and the different kinds of people I met while serving, or that I interacted with on a mission, stays with me forever. Even this most recent one in El Salvador was incredible. So, absolutely. Is there anything else that I should have asked you that I didn't?
Oh
Like a
my
trivia
goodness.
round?
That's a great question. I love asking that question. I'll tell you, I just encourage, and I know we talked just we touched on it, throughout the evening, but I encourage folks who are getting ready to transition from the military in the near future, whenever that is, or industry to industry. I really encourage you to take your time. I encourage you to have the courage to ask the right questions of yourself, the kinds of questions that are going to lead to the meaningful employment, or meaningful opportunities. It doesn't have to be employment. Some people are not ready to move on to other, to other careers, or don't have to and have great luxury and not needing to, but want to be of benefit to the world. There are so many places that your efforts can make a huge difference. But really, if you use this digital network, if you use the platforms in front of you, I tend to speak about LinkedIn a lot just because it is the professional network of choice. But ultimately, it's about creating connection, really meaningful connection. The last time, or the worst time, I should say, that you want to grow a network is when you need a network. And so you really have to kind of backtrack. You have to
Mhm.
back plan. And so, if you have 18, 24 months left of service, if you have 36 months of service, this is the right time right now for you to begin to develop professional networks, develop your interest in particular areas so that you can begin to learn more about them. I will share one other thing about the business world, if you will. As we transition from the uniform, our jobs, your job title may not necessarily mean the same thing it meant, or it means in the civilian sector. Not rank. Rank, obviously, we recognize that doesn't transition specifically and always. But if you're in HR, for example, HR in the civilian world is very different than HR in the military. And so there are a whole host of job specialties under that one field: logistics, intelligence. Think of a industry, and it's much larger likely in the civilian sector. And so you really want to begin to get to know that industry so that then you can figure out what parts of that industry you really like. And I
Mhm.
use HR as an example because there's a lot of us. I mean, if you've been in the military and you've achieved the rank of petty officer or sergeant, let alone of course officer, you are a manager of some sort. And so HR is a kind of job that practically anyone feels like they can do, and they can if you've reached a certain level, right? Whether you're an HR professional or not. And so a lot of people will consider that area. But my goodness, HR in the civilian sector includes, equal opportunity. It includes, hiring in some respects, in some industry or in some companies, for example. It includes a whole host of areas, and there are areas that you may not be that interested in. And then there are areas that you might be incredibly passionate about. You have no idea that it fits under the HR umbrella. So this is the time to do the homework when you're not in a hurry. And this
Right.
is the time to make the connections before you need them so that when you need them and when you need to know it and you have them.
Right. And it's just, I mean, I don't even know when my months are going to start. For me, digital networking is just about creating connections with other people in areas that I find fascinating, and it's an incredible way to connect with other people from, like I say, all over the world who
Yeah.
can inspire you and you can have these just amazing conversations with. So just like yourself, if it wasn't for LinkedIn, you and I would never. It's so funny because we did not meet through public affairs circles or through our professional channels.
I
I
know,
met
6 degrees too, and we didn't know each other.
my friend Joti, Joetey. I don't remember his last name off the top of my head. He's a reporter, and I can't even. He found me on LinkedIn, and we ended up becoming friends. And while we were doing a podcast together, he gave me a bunch of names of people that I should follow, and you were one of them. And so I
Well,
just that's honestly how I found you. And so I started following you, and I saw that you were into broadcasting. And at
mhm,
first, I didn't even catch that you had a public affairs background or anything. I knew that you were Army, I think, or military. But
uh-huh.
that's the thing. I would have never met you. Or maybe we would have run across each other some other way. But it's just kind of interesting how we ended up connecting. But Thank you so much. This has been such an incredible conversation. I knew it was going to be, so I'm so glad that you took time to talk to me today. And I hope all of you watching got some benefit out of this. If anyone has any additional questions, or if they have anything else that they'd like to talk to you about, what's obviously they can find you on LinkedIn. Any other place that they can find you?
Yeah, they can find me either on LinkedIn or on YouTube at Jose Velasquez Jr., all one word, all together. That's simple enough. On Instagram, I'm at JV_from_VMC, which is the name of my company.
Awesome. Well, we'll have this video posted on YouTube for people to check out later as well. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for all of you in the audience who joined us. We did get one last quick little comment from Roderick Duke. Great supporting the warfighter is what we do at Qualis. We help you transitioning. So another gentleman who is in the transition fight. So thank you, Rod. For coming on and providing some comments. But thank you all for watching Stories of Service, ordinary people who do extraordinary work. Tune in next time in the next couple weeks. I'm still lining up some of the guests. If you guys have ideas for guests, please let me know. I am definitely open to someone who gives back in the community, who does it just on a day-to-day basis in some way, shape, or form. I want to hear from you. So please send me a note. You know where to find me. Thanks all for watching. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a great night.